So now that we have set up the basics of decisions by the firm in a monopolistic or in a perfectly competitive market in the short run, let's expand on that a little bit. So the one thing that we said was that to maximize profits, the firm will produce where price, which is equal to the marginal revenue, equals the marginal cost. That's where we maximize our profits. So if we look down here, we have a firm, excuse me, and make it a little bigger. Okay. So we have a firm and we're looking at different prices and of the firm in a perfectly competitive market. So we have the marginal cost, average variable cost, and we're going to look at different prices here. So a couple things to remember. The first is that profit, and this kind of goes back to an earlier discussion, profit equals quantity times price minus average cost. It's also price minus average variable cost minus average fixed cost. Okay. So now, the one thing I have here is that the marginal cost is going to dictate Q. All right, the marginal cost is going to dictate output. The reason why is that, as we discussed, as price, or you maximize profits where price equals marginal cost, at least for perfect competition. Okay? Price equals marginal cost. So that means that no matter what the price is, the level of output that we're going to produce is going to be where that price equals the marginal cost. So in general, you can say that the marginal cost in perfect competition is going to equal the price. Because again, any level of output that you choose, it's going to be chosen based on that point where the marginal cost equals the price. So here I have some points on here. I have when the price is 10, the quantity is 10. When the price is 8, the quantity is 8. 6 and 6, 4 and 4, 2 and 2. Now your total revenue is going to be your price times your quantity, number of units sold times the price you just sold at. Okay. Again, this is assuming that the firm is a perfectly competitive firm and that's trying to maximize profits. So what does this mean? Let's look at these different points. So let's look at the first point. When the price is 10, quantity is 10. Revenue is 100. What about the total cost? Now, the one thing that we can say is that the total cost is going to be greater than the total revenue is going to be greater than the total cost. So in general, when you look at these, where marginal cost equals the price, that's where you find the profit maximizing output level. At that output level, then you can evaluate different costs. So at 10, here is the average variable cost, here's the average total cost, and here's the marginal cost. So the other thing to remember is that any average is a total divided by the quantity. Right? And so as long as the price is greater than the average cost, that means that the total revenue is going to be greater than total cost. Okay. So at this point here, total revenue greater than total cost. Now, that also goes along hand in hand with the price being greater than the average cost. Okay. Now, the price, as you can see, at this quantity, all right, because we're looking at all this at this quantity, because this is the profit maximizing output level. Now, at 10, the price is going to be greater than the average variable cost. I'll explain why that's important in a little bit. Now, going to profit here, profit is quantity times price minus average cost. As long as price is greater than the average cost, your profit's going to be positive. And so, profit's positive. Not worried about what the profit level is right now. So the next one, 8, when the price is 8, quantity is 8, total revenue is 64. Now, at this quantity of 8 here, because again, because marginal cost dictates the price. When the quantity is 8, we're at this point here. At this point, the price is going to equal the average cost. And so because price equals average cost, total revenue equals total cost. Now, price is still greater than average variable cost here, because at 8, here's your price, here's your average variable cost. Profit is going to be 0 here. Profit, quantity times price minus average cost. And so if price equals average cost, profit, 0. Okay. So again, price minus average cost, they're equal. Price minus average cost is 0. 0 times whatever the number of units is, profit is 0. Now, this is not a bad thing. Remember, we're talking about economic profit, which takes into account the full opportunity cost. All right, let's look at 6 and 6. So when the price is 6, quantity is 6. 6 times 6, 36. Now at this point, at 6, here's your average cost up here. Here is your price. And so the price is less than the average cost. Right? Price, however, is still greater than the average variable cost. So what can we say about our profit? I'll explain this in a second, but our profit is negative. Actually, these are backwards. Our profit is less than 0. All right, so we have a negative profit, but it's still greater than minus our fixed costs. All right, I'll explain the importance of that in a second. So now let's look at this point here, 4 and 4. So at 4 and 4, price is still less than your average cost. All right, so at quantity is 4, here's your price, here's your average cost. Right, so you're still gonna have a negative profit. Your price, however, is now equal to your average variable cost at this point. So what does that mean for profit? So again, profit equals quantity times price minus average variable cost minus average fixed cost. Now, it should be obvious that it's still going to be negative. So with that, we are saying that at that point, price equals average variable cost. And so if that's the case, let's say both equals 10, you have 10 minus 10, it's going to be 0. And so your profit is quantity times price, quantity times minus average fixed cost. And again, any total is the average times the quantity. So the quantity times average minus average fixed cost, your profit at this point is going to be minus your fixed cost. Okay. Finally, let's look at this last one, 2 and 2. All right, so 2 and 2, your price is still going to be less than your average cost, and so your total revenue is less than your total cost. But now your average variable is greater than the price. So your price is less than your average variable cost. So when we look at that, going back here, so profit, quantity times minus average variable cost minus average fixed cost. So what we have then, if average variable is greater than price, that's going to be some negative number. So price minus average variable, because the average variable is greater, it's going to be some minus A, all right, or minus X. Okay. So our profit is going to be minus QX, right, oh, actually, yeah, minus QX minus your fixed costs. So now let's talk about why that's important for a second. The reason that it's important is because your if you shut down, all right, so again, remember this is the short run, so you have those fixed costs. If you shut down, you still have those fixed costs. So just because you're making a negative profit, that does not mean you should shut down. Right? because let's look at your options. So let's say we are in this point here. So we're at 6.6. Right? So your profit here is negative. However, it's still greater than minus your fixed costs. So if you shut down, your profit is going to be minus your fixed cost. So let's say your fixed cost is $100. So if you shut down, your profit is going to be minus $100. If you operate, however, your profit is going to be somewhere between 0 and minus 100. So let's say it's minus 50. So you could either shut down and make minus 100 or stay open and make minus 50. Yeah, it's not a goal to make a negative profit, but in the short run, when you have those fixed costs, you need to keep them into consideration, or keep them in consideration. Now, at this point here, when the price is 4, your profit is minus your fixed costs. So whether you operate or not, your profit is minus your fixed costs. And at anywhere below this point here, at 2 and 2, for example, your profit is going to be less than minus your fixed costs. So if you shut down, your profit's minus your fixed costs. But if you stay open, your profit's going to be minus your fixed cost plus a little more of a loss. So instead of having that $100 loss, by operating, you may lose $150. Okay? So that's why that's the case there. So basically, as long as you are at this point or above price-wise, it's worth it for you to stay open, at least in the short run.